It is the post Chet Holmgren Renaissance morning. Schlecht, first and foremost, how you doing today? It's early where you are, so let's jump in. How are things going?
Oh, I'm doing great. I got the coffee going. I have the still some post Chet adrenaline still coursing through my veins. I'm feeling good.
So it was great. We had planned on doing this, a couple days ago, like before July 4th. We'd kind of planned on getting together this week and doing a podcast, right? And we were going to talk more about the offseason and everything. And we're still going to do that. That's going to be the second half of this podcast. But I mean, good God. Last night was one of the most fun summer league viewing experiences I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And it was in large part due to Chet Holmgren and the Oklahoma City Thunder starting the Thin Towers, Poku and Chet, starting Josh Giddey at point guard, where he's just slicing and dicing and doing whatever he wants on the court, getting wherever he wants. We had Jalen Williams from Santa Clara playing really, really well. We had just too much going on all at once, it felt like, for a summer league team. Obviously, this will be a significant portion of the Big Thunder, but I mean, I'm just going to start here, Andrew. I got texts from 4 different, NBA scouts, executives, whatever last night, asking me the simple question. It started happening at the end of the first half and continued throughout the game. Is what Chet Holmgren did last night the most impressive summer league debut for any draft pick that we could remember? And that's where we're at with what Chet did last night. Like, that is such a staggering realization that I think is just worth putting out into the world. Look, I don't want to overreact. It's summer league. Like, let's just not go nuts here, but it's hard to not be excited about what we saw last night with Chet Holmgren, I think.
Yeah, it was the variety of ways. I think there was an outcome where he puts up similar stats and it wasn't as impressive because you could see a world where he's just running pick and rolls, pick and pops with Josh Giddey, and Josh is just finding him. Right. And that's not what happened. Chet was bringing the ball up. He showcased a variety of moves with the basketball, which was a little surprising because it was like, man, this isn't Chet at Gonzaga. This is not the guy that we saw play under Mark Few last year.
Yeah. It was more high school Chet. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Yes. It's more high school, more like U19 type stuff from Chet. And I think the Thunder fan base was surprised. I think people were really surprised to see the way that he played, especially the way he just shot the basketball so effortlessly, from three, from the free throw line. I think there were some people out there kind of trying to tamper the expectations with his shot in particular, saying, oh, well, did you see how he shot in the half court? And the fact is, like, he's a shooter. I mean, he was shooting the ball right when it hit his hands. He missed his first one, but when he just took it so quickly, you're like, oh, okay, this is what we're going to do. And then I don't think he missed after he took that one. But he was so impressive. And then defensively, I think a lot of people are like, well, look at these giant guys. He's going to have trouble with them. He destroyed these. I mean, Taco Fall, Kofi Coburn, but they're not NBA level. Like, really, they're not NBA level centers. But he made them look like they weren't. Where summer league can be deceiving in some ways. I was just so impressed with him, man. I don't know what you thought. I'm curious to know what you thought about Chet. And what you maybe expected to see.
So, look, this comes from someone who I had Chet at number 1, right? Yeah. I just kind of decided near the end of the process, you know what? If this works, it's going to go better than anyone else's highest end outcome, essentially. And what we saw last night were flashes. Okay, let's say sustained full game summer league flashes.
Yeah.
Of what the upside is. So I've always been a little bit higher on his open court ball handling than what other people seem to be.
Mm-hmm.
I always have bought him as like a grab and go guy, for instance. And what we saw last night, he's just grabbing and going and stepping into threes because guys decide not to play up on him, right?
Yep.
The other thing that I really kind of considered, because last year I had Scotty Barnes at 5 or 6. I can't remember. I think probably 6 on my board. And one of the things that I did not really consider is that for these big 6'9+ ball handlers in the college game, unless their team is playing 5 out all the time, right? There is just no space to operate in the mid-range as a ball handler, as a driver for these big guys in college basketball. Because they're just bigger than guards, right? Like they take up more space as ball handlers in that mid-range area, just physically, than smaller guards do. And it can be harder for them to kind of maneuver around without running into help. In the NBA game, the court is just much more well-spaced. There's just more space out there geometrically because the 3-point line is further back. B, there's more skill out there. It's even at the summer league level, it's essentially like a college basketball all-star game, let's say, right?
Yep.
So I have always thought that there was a real chance that Chet's ball handling would play up once he got to a better level, especially considering that Gonzaga played Drew Timme next to him. And I just want to get this out of the way real quick. We shouldn't be shit talking Mark Few based on what we saw from Chet Holmgren last night. Drew Timme was genuinely one of the 2 or 3 best bigs in college basketball from an offensive perspective last year.
Yeah.
Averaged probably 20 points a game, unstoppable on the block. If you have Drew Timme on your team, you should operate in exactly the way that Gonzaga did last year. Mm-hmm. I just want to be very clear about that. Do I wish that Mark may have let, Chet do a little bit more as a driver? Potentially. But again, there's just not a lot of space out there for these guys to be able to attack because of the way that the mid-range area is condensed in college basketball. So I say all of that to say, the ball handling stuff did not really surprise me. He had a great shooting night. Let's also just be clear about that. He made his first 4 threes and he started to feel it. You could see after he made that 4-3, he comes down, dribble right, spin back left, Dirk fade away. What are we doing here? You could see it. But here's ultimately the thing that made me end up with Chet at number 1. And it's the biggest thing that showed through last night. And we'll talk about the defense or whatever. That dude is not scared. That dude thinks he is the best player. People will joke around about the stuff he said pre-draft where he's someone would ask him who's the best player in the NBA. And he'd go, oh yeah, me in 3 months.
Yeah.
He believes that. This is the thing. He genuinely believes that. And he conducts himself as such. And I think that can't be overstated when it comes to something like this. He is never going to lack for confidence. These guys that are skinny and don't, have the great physicality to be able to deal with shit. Sometimes they just lose confidence, right? They get beaten up and they get chewed up and spit out a little bit.
I mean, Poku's a grand example of that to people that have watched the Thunder. You know?
And I think he's pretty confident for a guy like this, but he still, has his moments where he looks like he's having a tough time. Right. And you can see it kind of in his reactions. You're never going to see that with Chet. He's super professional. He's an incredibly hard worker, 10s across the board when it comes to the off court stuff, 10s across the board in terms of confidence. I didn't expect that, where he had 23, what was it, 23, 8 and 6 blocks or something like that. He had multiple assists in the
4 assists, 6 blocks. Yeah.
I didn't expect that, but I thought he would look really good in summer league, I guess is what I would say.
Yeah. I was very surprised. I don't I don't know, what other debuts would you compare it to? Like, what other great summer league debuts? Like, and not all of them ended up being great players. I mean, I remember Anthony Randolph just being like an absolute monster in summer league. So it's just you can only overreact so much to it just because it is summer league, and that Utah team looked like a team that hadn't really had a good first round pick in a long time. You know,
they did.
whereas with the Thunder, I mean, you're starting several first round picks and you're playing several guys that are highly touted. Where
there was a real talent disadvantage for Utah. Like, let's be clear on that.
Yeah. And that's because they've been in the playoffs for several years. Like, this is what happens. Like, this is how you get to places.
Yeah, they've also made some shitty picks as well. Like, you take Udoka Azubuike.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Jared Butler, it seems like, is not going to pan out. I really like Jared pre-draft, but he just looks like he can't really separate at the level necessary for someone like him. Maybe that changes. Like, maybe he just had a bad night last night and we see better from him over the course of the next little while. But, you know, that doesn't look awesome right now. None of the Mieoni, Jarrell Brantley, Justin Wright Foreman second round seems to have panned out in any way, given that none of them are on the roster. So, like, it's worth noting that the Utah Jazz are a really poor summer league team. They have guys that I'm like kind of sneaky interested in. Like, I really like Jonathan Williams out of Buffalo. Like, but by like him, I was like, okay, I think I have a two-way grade on this guy when nobody else in the public sphere at least does. I will also note here too, this was the exact kind of game that you would expect Chet Holmgren to find success in against bigs like Kofi Coburn, Taco Fall, guys like that, where they can't do anything with him in space, right? Mm-hmm. And it is worth noting the context of that. Like, no crazy explosive athletes for the Jazz, no mobile bigs. Wings and fours couldn't really do anything with them though last night. Like, they tried to pop Vic Law on him, and Vic Law is like a very high level, like, Australian NBL player. Mm-hmm. And frankly, like, if he was slightly more athletic, would probably be an NBA player. But I mean, couldn't do anything with him. Like, can't do anything with Chet. It's crazy. And like, the block on Vic Law at the rim just kind of said it all to start the second half. It was just like, oh, that to me was like the holy shit moment that he did last night. That and the Dirk fadeaway. Because, like, again, Vic Law is like 25, I would guess, at this point. It is a good player. He's a high level professional player who could probably play borderline EuroLeague basketball.
Yeah.
And Chat was just like, nope, no chance.
I think that's when most Thunder fans passed out, was whenever Chet blocks it at the rim, throws it to Poku. Poku throws it to Giddey. Giddey throws it, I think, to Wiggins, and Wiggins dunks. You're like, this is my new life, you know.
Well, Thunder fans. How many times did you just like find yourself laughing out loud?
Oh, my wife was like, what's going on with you? And I'm like trying to convey to her what's happening on the screen as she's like doing something in the kitchen. Like, you just can't. I mean, the Thunder have obviously had a lot of great players, but to watch this guy, it felt different. It felt similar to those vibes that you had with like the early Thunder. It was, and you're also at the same time thinking, and the reason you laugh is because this is Summer League. And I shouldn't be having these feelings about Summer League. This is game 1 of Summer League. Like, what am I doing? But you couldn't deny just the variety of ways that he was just outperforming everybody. I mean, he was just so clearly the best player on the floor, and maybe the bar is low for that. Yeah. But still, I mean, that's the bar that was set, you know, and he cleared it.
Chet was so good last night and I love Cerruti, and I don't know Kevin Clark quite as well, but I love Kevin's work. Chet was so good last night that Cerruti and Kevin had a Spotify live room as Orlando fans thinking they fucked up the first round, the first overall pick already.
No, see, I feared that. I knew that stuff would be going on Reddit or whatever. I feared that for Magic fans because so you haven't even seen your guy yet. Like you're already like, oh no.
There was a point where Russillo came on because Cerruti's Russillo's producer.
Yeah.
And Cerruti was talking, and I could just hear Russillo cackling in the background before even saying anything, just like laughing at the absurdity of what's happening right now. But that's how good Chet was last night. Like it was ridiculous. I don't really know that we need to like dive deeper into Chet. I really like Josh Giddey last night. I know that like there was some consternation, it seemed like, where, oh no, like he's struggling with turnovers and he's missing shots. Josh Giddey got wherever the hell he wanted last night.
Yeah.
There was no one on Utah that could do anything with him.
Yeah.
I like Jalen Williams from Santa Clara. I thought he did great. I thought he was super effective in the minutes he played. Had some really, really strong finishes. I thought touch finishes, extension finishes, a lot of different tools in the toolbox. I thought that were impressive.
He showcased some stuff that I think when they drafted him, some people their reaction was, well, how do you have all these ball handlers all on one team? And he showcased some stuff that showed that it's not necessarily just like playmaking with the ball, but being able to cut at the right time and see the floor the way that he does. That's going to be beneficial. I think he had 2 cuts last night that ended up in dunks. And it's those kind of things that I think you're going to see a lot from him because yes, is he going to handle the ball a ton with Josh Giddey and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on the court? Like no. But can he play with those guys? I think he can. He shot really well off the catch. And then if he's able to cut the way he was last night, I mean, those are great tools to have. And defensively is the question with him, but we'll see. Offensively, I think he's going to fit like a glove with these guys.